All right. I'm going to speak to you about the past and future of Mother's Day, and I'm going to do it the entire time while looking at this piece of paper.
That's okay.
In the year 1870, Julia Ward Howe, an abolitionist best remembered as the poet who wrote Battle Hymn of the Republic, wrote the Mother's Day Proclamation with the intention of beginning what I would call a day of rage, not a day for cards and flowers, a day of protest, a day of unity for women, recognition of our needs, not simply a day to say that moms are great, which they are. Her original Mother's Day proclamation went like this: "Arise, all ye women who have hearts." I added the ye by accident. "Arise, all women who have hearts, whether your baptism be that of water or of tears. Say firmly, we will not have great questions decided by irrelevant agencies. Our husbands shall not come to us reeking with carnage for caresses and applause. Our sons shall not be taken from us to unlearn all that we have been able to teach them of charity, mercy, and patience. We women of one country will be too tender of those of another country to allow our sons to be trained to injure theirs. From the bosom of the devastated earth, a voice goes up with our own. It says, disarm, disarm. The sword is not the balance of justice. Blood does not wipe out dishonor, nor violence indicate possession. As men have often forsaken the plow and the anvil at the summons of war, let women now leave all that may be left of home for a great and earnest day of council. Let them meet at first as women to bewail and commemorate the dead. Let them then solemnly take counsel with each other as to the means whereby the great human family can live in peace, each learning after his own time the sacred impress not of Caesar but of God. In the name of womanhood and of humanity, I earnestly ask that a general congress of women without limit of nationality may be appointed and held at some place deemed most convenient and at the earliest period consistent with its objects, to promote the alliance of the different nationalities, the amicable settlement of international questions, the great and general interests of peace." So we can see what Julia Ward Howe wanted Mother's Day to be about, at least, and how much faith she had in men to be allowed to continue to make all of the decisions. Fast forward, 1870. Fast forward a few decades, we find Anna Jarvis. Anna was a pioneer in her time by being an educated, successful career woman and an investor in the time before women took back our human rights to own property, choose who we marry and if and when we bear children, and make our own legal, financial, and medical decisions without a man's permission. Human rights which had been taken from us by the men in control of society for thousands of years. Anna wanted to establish Mother's Day as a day to celebrate women and mothers, moved by a statement her own mother, social activist Anne Reeves Jarvis, had once made, which went, "I hope and pray that someone sometime will found a memorial Mother's Day commemorating her for the matchless service she renders to humanity in every field of life. She is entitled to it." Damn right. It may come as no surprise to you that this version of Mother's Day was more palatable to the general public, and it took off, being established as a national holiday several years later. I think maybe that was 1914, by President Woodrow Wilson. Near the end of her life, Anna Jarvis actually began a petition to rescind the holiday she had essentially created. Others had commercialized the holiday and commodified its symbols, profiting from it and cheapening it, while she tried in vain to keep it true to its original meaning and fell into poverty. Her effort to do away with Mother's Day as we now know it was ended when she was placed in a sanitarium. People connected with the floral and greeting card industries paid the bills to keep her in the sanitarium. My source for that is NPR. So it's not
a
like
very centered, reliable source.
today we're gathered here not simply to celebrate women and mothers with cards and flowers, but to honor our mothers and grandmothers who had to fight to secure the rights that we enjoy now, to fight for the rights and equality that our daughters and granddaughters will enjoy, to stop the men who control our society now from dragging us back to that time when we were prevented from making our own medical decisions without a man's permission. To say that on Mother's Day, we do not accept shallow gestures like cards, flowers, and candy in place of the guarantee of our equal rights as half of the human race, sovereignty over our own bodies, real freedom. So to sum it up, we're out here today instead of at brunch with our kids and our mothers because a U.S. Supreme Court justice in the year 2022 wrote a decision taking away the right to decide what happens in our own bodies, a right that, appallingly, we only finally secured for ourselves in the decade before I was born, and I don't feel that old. In his justification for this decision, he quoted a 17th century, he referenced a 17th century English judge who wrote that women were the property of their husbands and should be correctively beaten for any deviation from their husband's will, and executed women for witchcraft. This and everything else we've seen from the far-right extremists taking over our government paints a clear picture of what they hope to achieve. We cannot allow it. We will not allow it. We will not go back.
Someone who doesn't like to speak in front of people, you did a great job.
Shaking.
Uh-huh.
It's shaking and the drive.
I, on the other hand, don't care.
Kathy G is going to speak a little bit about
Some data points, some
Yes.
facts.
the good ones, myths that are being
Yeah.
passed around.
There are many myths being perpetrated out there by the anti-abortionists. And I'm going to give you hard data, and I'm going to tell you where you can find this link so you can print it out, read it yourself, and have that ammunition. Because I think it's critical. The first claim, there is big support for ending Roe v. Wade. False. 61% of the United States adults say that abortion should be legal in most or all cases. So that means there's about 37-ish% that are trying to deny the rights of women and deny the rights of the majority. Okay, so the next one is the only people getting abortions are straight, cisgender women. False. The trans and non-binary people have undergone abortions as well. The Guttmacher Institute estimates in 2017 an estimated 462 to 530 transgender or non-binary individuals in the U.S. had an abortion. That's quite an amount. Of course, any amount is something. The other myth, a big one that's used out there all the time, late-term abortions. They're killing babies as soon as they come out of the womb. False. According to the CDC, they're trustworthy, right? Their data is pretty good, right? Late-term abortions are considered, let's say, we'll start at 14 to 15 weeks. 3% of all abortions occur during that time frame. 16 to 17 weeks, 2% of all abortions occur at that time. Now they're not defining, are these ectopic, that need to be aborted to save the life of the mother. They're not saying, does the woman have a medical condition? They're just stating numbers. So always remember that. 18 to 20 weeks, 2%. 21 weeks and over, 1%. 1% of all abortions happen in the last trimester. But they'll scream it from the rooftops.
We heard it.
There's millions and millions of people killing babies. Abortion pills, which can typically be used up to 10 weeks into pregnancy, made up 54% of the abortions in 2020. 54%. Here's another good one. Those babies feel pain when they're aborted. The fact is, written by the Journal of the American Medical Association, that the fetus, which is, if I remember correctly, about 11 to 12 weeks, is when it becomes from an embryo to a fetus, is not capable of experiencing pain until somewhere between 29 or 30 weeks. The reason they don't have the awareness of pain is because it requires functional, I'm going to really shatter this word here, thalamocortical connections. Those are fibers that begin appearing between the weeks of 23 and 30. But even then, they are just beginning to form, and so therefore the capacity for pain doesn't come until later. People who are religious don't get abortions. You hear that? Have you ever heard that before? Now, I'm hoping that the statistics that I'm about ready to give you do not offend anyone of faith or of your faith. Catholics, 24% of all abortions. Mainline Protestants, 17% of all abortions. Evangelicals, 13%. Other religions, 8%. That's a total of 62% of the women who have an abortion have some type of religious beliefs. It's not about religion. It's about control. And then, let's see. Then something I found the other day, I think it may have been Tuesday morning when I saw a Twitter post about a statement that was made in the opinion that came down on Monday, about halfway through. That would make it about 45 to 47th page, because there's 98 pages in that opinion. She already mentioned the 1600s person that
It was quoted many times.
yeah, many times, and there's much more references to him and why. So there's another myth and a false statement that was placed in that opinion. And here's that myth. Modern developments, including the availability of safe haven laws, have rendered abortion unnecessary. This was Amy Coney Barrett's statement in December regarding the Mississippi's 15-week abortion rule. Safe haven laws began in existence, or have been in existence since 1999. And I think these are a little bit older data points here, and I don't know exactly what year because I didn't write it down. 1,397 babies were abandoned illegally. That means they weren't given up at the hospital, they weren't given up at the fire station that has a safe box, or a home that has a safe box. 1,397 illegally.
In 1 year?
I don't know that that's 1 year. Again, I didn't write it down, and I don't recall. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think it was over a period of time. 773 were found deceased. 22,000 were abandoned to hospitals. And only 62% of these babies were adopted within the first month. or a lot of these babies that are given to safe havens and this and that end up in foster care for years.
Yeah. Right.
And we all know that once a child reaches the age of 8 or or above, the chances of being adopted are very slim. So does Amy Coney Barrett's statement ring true? That safe havens render abortion unnecessary. So the first part of this article I got from NPR. If you want to go online, go to npr.org. Just Google claims of abortions and it'll pop right up. I tested it twice. So that's all I have. I don't like liars. And I personally want to thank everybody that came out, young, old like us. So Roe v. Wade went into effect when I was 19 years old. So I remember it well.
Does anybody else? Kobe was going to speak, but I've not seen him around here. But
He probably was going to speak on some of the things that I'm familiar with as well.
Kobe was going to speak about how, if you read this, what and it's a draft, it's not a decision yet.
Right.
Thank heavens, but how, and I saw something on Jake Tapper this morning about how way they're looking at it, precedent-wise, and the language and so forth. There are lots of other things that could be on the plate. Gay marriage, it's not just affecting women. Gay marriage, interracial marriage, the loving things. What else? Contraceptive availability, absolutely huge.
But wait, only for the women.
Right. I read something yesterday that said if one woman has intercourse with 100 men, she can only get pregnant one time. But one man has intercourse with 100 women, that's 100 babies.
Potential babies.
Right.
But we're the ones that need to take the measures.
Well,
Right.
and I'm not too aware of the conditions now, but in my younger days, it was the woman's fault. It was the woman's fault.
It still is.
This was before birth control. Wait, I don't get pregnant by myself. I mean, now you can because of Ivy. Yeah, but that's beside the point. But so many things are so ludicrous. Just absolutely ludicrous. I could stand up here all day, so I'm going to sit down.
Thank you, Kathy.
Anybody else have anything they want to add?
I would say one thing.
Yes.
I would say that the people who support who are anti-abortion are not pro-life, they are not pro-child, they are pro-fetus. They are not for the child's life because they do not want to support any kind of universal health care, universal education. They just want to control the woman's life.